Welcome to my 7 Commodore videos in 7 days challenge. This is part 5 of 7, and today we're going to look at the Commodore Telephone. In a previous video I did an unboxing where I revealed this amazing piece of Commodore history. So today we're going to look at this phone in more detail. It was designed by Commodore to work with the VIC-20 along with the VICModem. So in today's video we'll see how this was intended to work and the problems that they ran into and the solutions they came up with. So let's get started. So this is what you needed to get the Commodore Telephone to work. You needed a VIC-20, a VIC-modem, and of course the telephone. Now these two work together. Well, we're supposed to work together, but we'll find out what was the problem. And it all came down to the handset, this part here of the telephone, and how it was connected to the telephone. But we'll get into that in a few minutes. So first of all, we'll look at the VIC-20 itself and how the Commodore Telephone was going to be plugging into this VIC-20. Now I just want to warn you about this VIC-20. You may have to shield your eyes. It's a bit of a shocking sight, but you've been warned. And here it is. That's one very discolored VIC-20. You can see from the vents above what the original color was. It's a bit of a sad sight, isn't it? This is how I received it. I haven't actually done anything with it, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. First of all, I just want to show you something about the power supply for this Commodore. Notice something different? If you've owned a VIC-20, no doubt you had the power supply unit that looks a bit like the Commodore 64 power supply unit. And the connection that goes into the Commodore usually is like a round DIN plug. As you can see from this one, hopefully you can see it okay, it's a whole totally different connection. But notice the power supply unit also is a wall wart as well. So it's quite different, isn't it? My Commodore 64's on the right hand side here. I've just unplugged the power supply cable. You can see the difference between the two connections. And you can see from the side of the VIC-20, the later on models had the upgraded version of the DIN plug there for the power supply. Just out of curiosity, I'll show you the number of this VIC-20. You can also notice the original color as well of the VIC-20 underneath. Big contrast, isn't it? But the VIC-20 also came bundled with an external RF modulator. I also did a video a couple of weeks ago about how thousands of Commodore 64s in New Zealand were also bundled with these external RF modulators. It's an interesting piece of Commodore history. Check that video out after this one. Alright, so now we're going to put everything aside because we want the VIC-20 on its own. And also now we're going to bring in the VIC-modem or the VIC-1600 modem. This modem is quite famous because it's the first modem in history to sell for under $100 US, and also that's when other modems were selling for $400 US individually. But also it was the first modem to sell over 1 million units. And that was all part of Commodore's early plan to get computers into the hands of the masses. And it certainly worked. So on the back here of the modem case, it shows us how the modem works along with the VIC-20. Disconnect the handset cord, connect the handset cord to the VIC-modem, connect the VIC-modem to the VIC-20. Straightforward. And this is all illustrated on the front cover of the VIC-modem. But it's also where Commodore fell into trouble with the Commodore Telephone as well. So inside the box we've got a very nice manual for the VIC-modem. What makes it so nice is the introduction. It really sums up what Commodore was all about. Commodore wants everyone to join the computer revolution. That's why we invent products that are not only revolutionary but also affordable. The VIC-modem is only an example. When Commodore introduced the VIC-20, the friendly computer, the first color computer priced under $300, we wanted to include a telephone modem to go with it. But we wanted our modem to be in the $100 range, so everyone could afford telecomputing. Unfortunately, none of the major modem manufacturers we contacted would, or could, make a modem we could sell at this price. Finally, we located a small creative design group and presented them with our concept and design specifications. The group started working with us, and in a few months later, delivered the modem we asked for. It took a total of 6 months from concept to production, and in March 1982, the first VIC modems were delivered for sale. The result is a low-priced modem cartridge that plugs into the VIC-20 and connects directly to your telephone. The VIC-20 and the VIC modem together retail for less than $410, and that price is lower than the price of many modems. We at Commodore are committed to leading the personal computer revolution with new products that bring you the most advanced technology available at prices you can afford. Inside the box also is the VIC term, the cassette or the software for running the VIC modem. But most importantly for this video, and also obviously also for connecting online, is the VIC modem itself. And externally, it's a pretty simple device. It's only got 3 things you can really notice from the outside, and that's got the answer originate button or switch, the indicator light, and also the phone socket as well. So we'll plug this into the VIC-20, and it plugs into the user port. When I was a kid, we couldn't afford a VIC modem. Actually, I must admit, I never even heard of one when I was a kid. Who out there used to have one? Let me know in the comments below. And that's it. It's all set up. Now all we need now is the telephone to plug into the VIC modem. After all, that's the whole reason for this video in the first place. Isn't it a beautiful piece of Commodore history, this telephone? I've done a little bit of research on the telephone, and I'll just share what I've found so far. So this telephone was made for Commodore computers in Canada in the early 1980s. They were manufactured by Northern Electric. Now this was a subsidiary of Northern Telecom. They were made to complement the Commodore 1600 modem, as we know. And this is really old school stuff, because this is where you had to unplug your telephone headset and connect it to your modem. So your parents would miss many phone calls because you forgot to plug the telephone back in. The good old days, isn't it? Apparently the story to get this in production or get this into existence was quite a long one. But the short story is, if you lived in Canada and you brought a VIC modem for your VIC-20 computer, most likely you were given one of these Commodore phones in a special bundle. You lucky Canadians. So now let's plug this telephone into the VIC modem. So the headset, or the top part here, the receiver part, I can't remember the terminology because it's been so long since I've seen one of these, would unplug and then plug into the VIC modem. Because after all, that was the first step of the 3 steps to get your VIC modem up and running. But this is the step that the Commodore Telephone fell apart, because you couldn't disconnect the hand receiver or the handset, whatever it's called. And that was a standard practice in most telephones in Canada at the time. So even though this was a beautiful looking machine or beautiful looking device, it didn't really suit the purpose it was sold for. But of course you could still use it as a standard telephone. But Commodore really wanted to use this with their VIC modem. And we'll show the solution they came up with in a minute. But I just want to show you something that I discovered when I found one of these in hospice. Yep, another telephone. Can you tell me the difference between the 2 telephones, apart from the colour, of course? You notice it? It's the actual dial. On the left one, the Canadian one, it starts with 0, then counts down from 9 to 1. But the New Zealand one on the right hand side also starts at 0, but then starts 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Interesting, eh? I did some research on this when I discovered this, and it turns out that each country had different systems for running their rotary phones. And in New Zealand, we used the 10 pulses minus the number that was desired. So if we wanted to dial like 6, then it produced 4 pulses. So basically it was 10 pulses minus the number you desired. But in Northern America, apparently, whatever number you actually dialed was the corresponding amount of pulses that were used. So if you dialed 1, it produced 1 pulse. Not too sure why New Zealand and I think a couple of other countries were different, but obviously it worked. We used those for decades. Okay, back to the video though. So this is a telephone handset with a removable plug. This is what the Commodore Telephone was supposed to have had, but wasn't produced that way. So this would plug into the back of the VIC modem. And the other end of this cable was not actually plugged into anything, because I discovered that the New Zealand telephone had the same problem the Commodore Telephone had. You could not remove the cable from the handset or the handset. So at this stage then, when you plugged in your telephone, in theory you would dial the number to get to the service you wanted. That's the theory. Now Commodore had thousands of these telephones that would not work for the intended purpose. What could be done? Well, it's no worries, because Commodore had a solution. They created the VIC-1600, and here it is in the bundle. This was bundled with the Commodore Telephone so that it would work with the VIC modem. So how did it work? Well, from what I can tell, it worked pretty much like a splitter would have worked back in the day, where you would actually have the wall socket plugged into the VIC-1600, and then you'd have two other connections, one going off to the modem and then one going off to the Commodore phone. Now I believe there was also a switch on this 1605. There's not much information online about this, so you could actually switch between the telephone and the modem. So this meant that the Commodore Telephone was no longer a waste of money for Commodore, and they could sell them with the VIC modem in Canada. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that little piece of Commodore history. What a wonderful Commodore device this is. And it shows that even though it didn't suit its purpose initially, that Commodore engineers, Commodore staff didn't give up, and they fixed the problem. Very innovative. Hey, thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll produce another video tomorrow. I'll see you then.